What's up, guys, and welcome to another live stream. And I'm super pumped and excited about this one because we're sitting in big board territory, which I feel the most comfortable. So we've got an absolute special one today. We've got LorentzBoards, we've got Chris talking about their exciting, and I'm going to say it, and it needs to be on the website, Iron Man style board with the arc reactor in the middle of it, the most bespoke, unique and crowd-pleasing board. When you turn up to a group ride one of these things, you're really going to see it. But really exciting stuff. We'll bring Chris on. I'm going to talk about this really exciting board, so please put your questions in. I've got a lot of questions I want to ask, and I want to learn more about this exciting board. So let's welcome Chris.
What's going on, Thomas?
What's up, man? Do you know what? I'm going to say this before I let you introduce yourself, and I mean it with the bottom of my heart. I have never had a guest so much on the channel who's been so engaged with doing his live stream. So I appreciate the effort and the engagement, and this is going to be a really fun one.
Oh, I'm so stoked. When you sent the invite, I was just like, I love that. Oh yeah, it was twin. Just really stoked to be on with you to talk about Lorentz. I think it's really exciting. And so yeah, I wanted to hype it up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I appreciate, like I said, the engagement, and I appreciate having you on board and having the opportunity to talk about your amazing product, which, in my opinion, sits the channel the absolute best. So, for people who do not know about yourself, we're doing the Zoom call introduction. Do you want to introduce yourself and talk a bit about where you're from and a bit more about the board?
Sure thing. So, for folks who don't know me, my name's Chris Lips. I've been e-skating for over 4 years, and I'm the brand manager for LorentzBoards. I'm here in Washington, D.C. We've got our crew DC E-Skate. I'm so passionate. If anything that I'm as passionate about LorentzBoards and e-skate, it's DC E-Skate and my whole crew. So shout out to all of you guys. But yeah, just been doing e-skate and DIY e-skate for about 4 years now. Got hooked up with LorentzBoards. We got launched in March, and I think we've got something new and exciting that we're bringing to the market. That for me, it's something as like an e-skater I've always wanted. So I'm hella stoked.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when I got introduced about your product, actually, I was sitting around the round table with me, Scott Davies, crew, Craig Taylor, Andrew, which are sitting in the comment section as well, talking about a product. And when Scott talked about it, I was like, this is something unique and bespoke. We need refreshment in the community. So nothing but admiration from me for bringing something new and exciting to come into the e-skate industry. I just want to say as well, I've been a huge fan of DC e-skate since day one. Amazing community. So I want to start off there with humble beginnings. You know, this is your life, to start from the beginning. So how did you start into the e-skate industry with DC e-skate?
Oh man. Okay. So for me, I was not much of a skateboarder. I did it for a year when Tony Hawk was super popular, and then I wasn't good at it, and I went back to rollerblading, and that was my thing. But here in DC, around 4 years ago, they dropped the rental scooters, and it was when rental scooters first came out anywhere, and they went fast at that time. You could go like 20 on one, and I found myself taking one. Yeah, I found myself taking one almost every day to work. I would hire one and go. And after a while, I was like, man, I'm spending a good bit of money on this. Maybe I should get one. Maybe I need my own. And I was like, I don't want a scooter. That's not what I want. I want a skateboard. And so I was like, all right, I need to remember how to do this. I got a normal longboard. I messed on it for a bit. And then I got my first board. And I was on it for a while, and I would watch all these DC skate videos, and I was like, all right, I don't know if I'm good enough, but I'm just going to show up to a ride. Showed up to a Wednesday night ride, pushed the limit, was at the top speed of my board the entire time. Thought I was going to die, but I didn't. And I just kept coming, and I kept getting better at it. And here we are 4 years later. I'm one of the main organizers. Me and a couple of other guys put together these huge events. And it just, nothing makes me more passionate about e-skate than getting together with other people and sharing this hobby.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's infectious, isn't it? I feel like, and I've said this many times along the channel, along the way, which is that what I get from e-skate, it's all about putting it back in. So I'm just interested in, what was the first board that you had originally?
The first board I had was a backfired G2 Black 186 watt hour, 350 watt, 24 mile an hour top speed. I thought that thing was the king. I was getting like 7 miles of range because I'm like a big guy. Got it for $350 on a sale.
For sure. I think that, to be fair, with backfiring, that is a really solid first option. But like I said, you go there, you turn up, you do the meet, and you're like, wow, I need more and more and more, and it never ends. So I'm curious. So how is the transition to being like, obviously, you ride on your boards, you said you're some DIY. So where did that kind of evolve into the scene? Obviously, I can imagine you go to your ride, and you think, I need more and more and more. Was that the curiosity to build bigger and badder boards?
It really was. And when I started exploring DIY, because there was certainly some off-the-shelf options that were good. At that time, I paid $350 for that first board, so I just couldn't imagine spending like $2,500, $3K on a La Croix or something like that. And so instead, I spent more than that on DIY. But the reason was, people told me there was 2 reasons you should build DIY. A, because maybe at the high end, at the top end, A, because you like tinkering, or B, you want to build something that no one else is building. And at the time, that's what I was doing. I wanted a board that had urethane, but a pretty big battery for range, but I had all steel gear drives on it. And this was in 2020, I built it. There was nothing like that at the time. And so just kind of sent it, and it was ugly. First one was not that nice, but it went, snapped the deck. And on my second one, I felt like I actually made a good board.
But I think a good point as well. It's like the most expensive education ever. Through those trial and error and demand, you look into more advanced and cutting edge technology. And for me, big thumbs up for me. Gear drive. If I could stick a gear drive on anything, then I will, because it's exciting times. So I think it's interesting you say about the demand, and obviously demand of what you're doing. So did you find you were doing longer rides, higher ranges, all that, and that's what kind of pushed into the product you have now?
Yeah, I think that's what really unlocked it for me, was riding with the group. We would go on a trip to like New York, and I would borrow someone's board, which is kind of crazy. Someone would be like, here's my $2,500 La Croix, have fun in New York, son. But I would do that, and it's like, all right, I need my own, I'm going on longer rides, we're going faster. Wanted to have my own thing, and I had that DIY for a while. And I had always considered going non-board, but I just borrowing people's, to be honest. And finally, I thought, this is something I'd really like to see, which is something that has the fit and finish of like a production board like the Lorentz, but with the real performance that you're seeing from super high-end boards and e-skate.
I think it's interesting. You look at. I'm just going to pause it there. Look at that energy from that, and I can imagine it's just like, oh, it's beautiful. That even randomly stopping that in a 5-second window, that is a money shot for sure. And I feel like
that's America's main drive, Pennsylvania Avenue, and we skate that every day.
I really want to try that tarmac. That is beautiful. But I suppose like that, it pushes you to get the energy, the buzz from the community, and you just want to be involved in it more and more. I've got a question here, actually, and I'm curious as well. What is the ranges on your board? Because you actually have the 2-wheel variants for your board, don't you?
Yep, sure thing. So we advertise the range. First of all, we advertise real range, like actual serious range, not 100-pound rider going downhill. The real range is 25 to 50 pounds. I'll tell you what I get on the different wheel options. And that's, when I'm riding, I'm over 250 pounds geared up. On these wheels that we send with the board, riding with our crew, full sending all the time, I consistently will get 30 miles an hour. If you put a standard, just like 200 by 50 pneumatic wheel, which we used to make, that used to be our standard wheel actually, and then we made this standard, but I was getting 40 miles. And then if you go up to something like the tank tires, those are 10-inch tires, 10-inch by 3 inches, those are massive. You're getting down in range. For someone like me, it's probably going to be closer to like 20 miles. But I have tons of customers that are getting more than 50 miles on this board because they're not 250 pounds like me.
I think it's really important to say that because I feel like I know I'm not going to name names on companies, but I know when I got more into sport and I bought commercial board, I was watching the reviews, the content. People were like, I get infinite range, all this stuff, and then I tried, and I'm like, there's something wrong with my board. It's not working. And I feel like when I do my reviews, and I appreciate you saying the same thing. It's like it's advertised this. This is what I get, but I rag the hell out of my thing, and I'm not kind to it. So you should expect more. And I think that's a really good baseline for most people. I think it's really important to.
Yeah, I think what I'm telling people is basically the minimum numbers.
Exactly, because then you're excited to get more. Like I said, I'm not a light guy, and I appreciate when I do my review, I'm like it does X, Y, and Z, and this is the range and this experience I had. So you should expect more every time. And I think that's really important to talk about. I've got another question here actually for someone here who was asking, can the lights be removed and another pack on top? I think that's a really interesting point there.
Can the light be removed? Yeah. Yep. Just held on by a few bolts on the inside of the deck. And if you remove the light, there would be a hole in the shape of the light in the deck. Could you add another pack? I don't see why you couldn't.
Yeah, have fun with that project. Yeah, but go for it. Yeah, go to town. I just want to highlight that as well. Actually, let me just bring up actually briefly what we'd like to talk about. Some people may not know. Let me bring a video here. 1 second. So Cammy, the legend. While I'm bringing this up, bringing up the footage. What was the inspiration of having lights? Because they're such a massive part of the board. So what was the inspiration of having so many lights incorporated with the board?
Sure. So we wanted to bring something cool to the board, something different that really hadn't been in eSkate yet. With that center light indicator, not only does it show your battery charge, but for instance, and I got it behind me, like if I brake, it's filling in red. Cool. And I'm not going to accelerate because I'll do a burnout on my wall.
Yeah, I've done that.
It fills up in dark purple. And that's all connected to the remote. We just wanted to bring something really cool that I think, you as a rider might not be the one who looks down at it, but when you're riding with people, they see what's going on, and it is just cool and unique. Same thing with the lasers. Wanted to bring something cool, something that catches your eye, that gives you that cyberpunk feeling when you're riding at night. And then with the headlights, we've seen headlights like this on boards before. The thing we wanted is that you can turn them on and off with the remote. Should be kind of a simple thing that you would think is common in eSkate, but I can basically count on one hand the amount of boards that have been able to integrate headlights that can be controlled with the remote.
I've said this for a long, long time. We've got massive, enormous batteries. Why are we not incorporating them in our board and then have the convenience of just snapping things on? Like, I know I've been riding, for example, the name of brands here. I've been the X-Ray Wave recently with the lights and the Backfire Z and stuff like that. Being able to switch things on is such a convenient thing because, for example, you've got the massive battery there, and the same thing with this product here, where you can go out for a ride and you can think, oh, crap, I haven't charged my lights, so it's not going to work. So it's always there, ready to go. But yeah, I was going to say, with the lights as well, have you found like wear and tear and upkeep with stuff like that with the lights on the board?
None. No kind of wear, tear, upkeep. Those are on metal arms. The lights are made of metal. They've got those really nice kind of connectors that go straight into the enclosure. That goes nicely with a solid click. For me, there's been no maintenance. There's nothing to do with them.
So I have to talk about the elephant in the room. Is that an arc reactor? Please tell me.
My attorneys, and specifically Disney's attorneys, cannot allow me to answer yes to that question.
That is such a cool fact. Do you know as well? I think I love the way how simple it is being able to use the lights as an information thing as well. I think that's really great. Obviously, the braking curve and the acceleration curve, obviously where it dials up and then use it the braking curve. I think that's such a really cool feature for sure. So with the board as well, obviously you've kind of got the bindings as an option as well. So is there predominantly stronger, like the appeal for off-road riding as well for the board as well?
I think so. One of the things, is that this is a mountain board, and we certainly market it as all-terrain. Real talk, a true like intense mountain board usually is going to have a top box to give you that clearance. We wanted to offer something like what is the granddaddy of 2-in-1s? Let's say if you have a 2-in-1 longboard and it's got street wheels and then it's got pneumatic wheels, and you can do a little bit more with those pneumatic wheels. Well, what would you do if you could take these track wheels that we have and then you upped it to 10-inch wheels? That at that point starts negating that you have the battery on the bottom, because you have the same amount of clearance now because of it. And that thing is made like a tank. So if you hit it, you're not doing anything to it. But that's just, we wanted to bring something different. There's very few boards out there that have tires like this available. And the fact that it's all one system, you're still going to have really strong performance with those 10-inch tires. If you want to go crazy with it off-road, you can. I have.
So it's more of like a all-terrain, as in all-terrain is, and you can hit all-terrain board, less than something you'd be obviously due to the weight, obviously as well, doing like massive jumps and stuff like that. It's more like all-terrain, Jeep style. You can train everything with the battery size, and obviously with those larger wheels for the clearance. Because I feel like there's a lot of all-terrain boards. But I suppose with the 10-inch tires and the bindings, you can lock yourself in and steam over higher all-terrain environments.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was want to talk as well. So the gear drive as well, has that always been the goal since day one, about having an incorporated gear drive as part of the build?
Day one. We didn't want to make anything optional for the most part on this board. We wanted to, whatever you were getting like sort of the strongest, toughest thing that could handle the amount of power that we were putting into this board. So it's got an all steel gear drive system. It's got a ton of torque because it's got a 5.3 ratio. And we just wanted to make sure you had something that was going to stand the test of time and whatever you threw at it. We had tested, for instance, some gear drives using a POM gear. And while it's not easy to do, you can have a failure. And in one of our testing sessions, we did have a failure with it. While you gain weight, certainly, and weight becomes an issue, we think it's worth it because there's enough power under this board that when you're riding down, you're not really worried about it. But it's just a tough as nail, all steel gear drive system. And that was day one. We wanted to have that. Kind of gets back to even what I was saying, like when I made my DIY more than 3 years ago, I was putting all steel gears in there.
Well, I find the most interesting thing about the interviews is about the pathway of choices, the things that happen along the way to be influenced where we're at now. So you said obviously with the gear drive as well. I also want to talk about, obviously you said the torque and the power. I'm going to throw my good friend Drew in here, see if he's still here. But he was lucky enough to do a video for you guys. But the it is, and one thing I've noticed from big board rider, heavier guy, long range boards, they're not that torquey initially. I've seen they seem to go up and then they seem to wake up around the 20 mile an hour mark and then keep going. But I seem to find one shot that really blew me away from Drew's video is the sheer acceleration from 0 to far away in a very short space of time. It's geared in a way where the acceleration is quite heavy. I think this is the money shot here. This is the one there. I was like, geez. I was like, it's gone in a really short space of time.
So this is something that I think makes Lorentz unique by choosing to have our own custom ESC that is not vest-based. I think I've had the same experience riding a lot of big boards, and particularly vest-based boards, is that it's not super strong initially, and then you hit that roughly 20 miles an hour range, and you get a rush of power. And that's dope. I mean, that's super exciting when you're out and riding, in my opinion, we have almost the opposite power curve, where because of this gear ratio and the power that we're putting down, it is a ton of power getting up to 20, 25 miles an hour. Levels off a little bit. You still have power. You're still going at that speed. But the reality, at least for us, is that we are more often in that power range, in that 0 to 20, 25. That's what we're using. We're getting at stop signs. We're at stoplights, and then we're just like banging out of there. It's not to say that we aren't at 20 and want more at those times, but we just felt like the power band that mattered more was the early. So that's why you see crazy amounts of torque on the onset. And then I think people who like ride this and then go ride like a La Croix right after, they're going to see like, okay, that thing really takes off like a rocket at 2025, while this thing starts mellowing out a little.
I think that, to be honest, and I would totally agree with that. I think, like I said, the other demographics which sit in this market, obviously with the boutique board market, it's like you keep going. But like I say, for me, I think my happy place, 35. That's where a majority of my cruising speed is a lot of times. So if you can get to that point really quickly and have fun with it, I think that's what's really important. I've got a question here as well, because the community is always wanting more. So what's next? Street, track, shortboard, or anything like that at all? Or is it always going to be bigger board, or where we're at with that?
Sure. So we are active in product development. I can't say a lot now. I'm going to leave you with, we are working on something that we think is a nice complement to the major. And we're going to be looking at sometime in 2024. That's really as much as I'm going to say now.
So I'm going to dig just slightly. I'm not going to push too much, but I'm going to keep the heavily balanced just to tease and get a little bit of interest as well. Will this, without revealing, will this next chapter be at eSkateCon potentially, or is that achievable potentially?
My personal feeling is we'd be crazy not to. We launched this board at eSkateCon this year, and we're excited to come back to eSkateCon next year, we hope to have more to share with the community.
So basically, eSkateCon next year, come anyway, be there anyway, because you have to be there, but walk over to the booth. Is there going to be a booth this year? Because I remember last year you was demoing for the ride. Are we going to have a booth next year to do demos and test out the board for eSkateCon next year potentially?
That's definitely the plan. I mean, we were like scrambling to get our website and everything open by eSkateCon, and we just couldn't put it together to actually have a booth last year. But I think that's the right move for this year, and we got to work towards that.
Yeah, for sure. I think what I love about the eSkateCon, and I think it's really great to have the launch. Do you know what? There was a few elements to eSkateCon that really excited me, and I think, like I said, the wow factor of your board when you come over at the night ride and it's glowing and it has a beat, there's a soul. It's really, really exciting. Like even when I walked over to Eric and his board's he had the SFX Bluetooth and he's light up and all that stuff. I think I spoke to you briefly in the lobby before we get ourselves started, and I was saying I feel like your board, the way it's come across, I said with the night ride and the light, it almost has two boards. But think about it now with the 10-inch tires, it's almost like a 3-in-1. You've got a day board, a night board, and you've got a hard off-road board as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're trying to offer something that's super interesting that maybe fits a lot of different types of riders too. But you can be that one rider that does all of those things. It felt like this board is almost made for Vegas, like turning up at night. Lights are everywhere. This thing's shooting lasers. It's got 2,000 lumens each blasting. I remember pulling up and Scott Davies was like, "Oh, Chris Lips is here. I could see him coming from a block away."
It's incredible. If you're not out there, you're not. Yeah, let's be honest. We're riding electric skateboards as a passion. We want to be seen. We want to be seen. I just want to say one thing that is bespoke about your board, and you talk about the beams as well. I'm going to just bring this freeze frame here. Is the ground LEDs, beams? I don't know how you describe them, but the lights here. That is such a simple, clever concept about making your board wider for safety as well. I think that's such a brilliant idea. What came around the idea of putting beams along the floor?
Yeah, so those are lasers. I mean, we haven't seen an electric skateboard that has lasers coming off of it before, Lorentz. I have the suspicion that we're going to see a bunch of them next year, though.
There you go, yeah.
That said, though, but I mean, we just, it's something to be seen, really give you that, like, sort of, for me, it's like a cyberpunk effect. And it's connected to our battery the same. It's controlled by the remote. It comes on in the same way the headlights come on. And it's just, I don't know, we're just a bunch of e-skate riders, wanted to build something cool. We were like, can we put lasers on this board? Yeah, we can. Oh, that'd be sick. Okay.
Let's do it. Yeah, for sure. So I want to ask you as well, because I'm curious, what happened? I remember saw you, did you have an accident or something at E-Skate Con or anything? I heard something potentially happened, but I didn't know the detail. I wanted to save and ask a question. Did something happen at E-Skate Con? Because you was at the E-Skate Run, I thought this guy's going to be the whole ride anyway, but did something happen at E-Skate Con?
Oh, totally. So I know, because of my experience with our huge group rides at DC Skate, I know that anything can happen on these rides. So even if we're going slow the whole time, I show up pretty geared to these things. And we were at one point like behind Las Vegas Strip. We started getting some speed now that we weren't in traffic and spread out. And a rider we were going like 20 already, and someone went straight by me, got the wobbles, essentially dove out in front of the board. And I was like, all right, there's no avoiding it. But I steered up, as you see me in this video, got up, dusted myself off, continued on the ride.
Oh, sweet. That's cool. But look at that scene. It is made for Vegas, isn't it? It really, really
it really is.
That's such a cool board. So with the gear drive system as well, I mean, just ask this: is it a push fit design or is there bolts stuff like that? Because I feel like that's a really important factor. Because obviously, as the evolution of gear drives have improved over the years, is it just simply a push fit or is there bolts? So how does that work with the gear drive system?
Simply a push fit system. It's like between the two 8-inch size tires. You pull it off, you put one on. So I just carry a full wheel in my backpack. I don't deal with flats when I'm out riding. I just slap on another wheel, even if it's in the back. It's quicker than I could change a belt drive, flat in the rear. The tank is a little different because we have to have longer axles. So that's a little more involved. That's still push fit though. Like theoretically, if you had a 5th tank wheel and you got a flat, you could just stick it on.
I think that's so nice, and I feel like obviously been in the scene for a long time. I feel like originally gear drives were that kind of like pain in the ass thing. When you're done, you're out, like, or a flat tire. So like that kind of push fit design, I'm nothing but pushing that nowadays. I think that's really, really, really nice. And obviously you got the hub wheel, the CNC hub as well. So how many elements on this board are that CNC precision element?
Gosh, pretty much anything that's made of metal. I mean, goodness, even the remote case is CNC. The wheels, the trucks, the motor mounts, the gear drives, it's all CNC. Anything that's metal is CNC on this board.
I think the information on the remote is really, really nice as well, and the fact you can customize things as well and see the technology, we'll see the battery levels and all that stuff as well is really, really nice as well, for sure. So you said about the whole vesting change in the ESC. Is that the main goal of making the board as simple as possible for the user?
Yeah, we wanted to make something that was really high performance but user friendly. We talked about this. I do DIY. I think the e-skate community and the whole PEV community owes a lot to Benjamin Better and the Best Project. But I will say this, I don't think there's any DIY builder that hasn't dealt with something that at one point might have tossed them off the board, whether it's a FET glue on their ESC, they got a DRV fault, what I just like to call vest gremlins sometimes that pop up. And for people who are paying this much for a board, I don't like, that you're sort of like not in charge and It's just this open source thing that sometimes you shrug your shoulders and you say sorry and you send them a new ASC. That wasn't really something, so that's me saying it's amazing. Vesk is awesome, and I think Vesk will always be the king of power and the ability to customize. But we wanted to offer something different, and that was something that was still really high performance, because forever, Vesk was the only way you could get performance. We give you something that's really high performance, like you show in Drew's video, but it's user-friendly. If you never want to open up a laptop or a phone app to mess with your phone and set it, you can do everything in the remote, pretty basic settings, and get the feel you want out of this board.
I think is that the kind of ultimate underlying goal with the board, is about having the user experience as simple and as clean as possible?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's really, the thing about some of, this isn't a boutique board, because this is really made in like sort of mass production type of manufacturing. But the thing about some of those boards is like they had this element of it that you could tell it was like kind of built by a man in, a really nice production room. We wanted to offer something that was like really slick, had that really nice production quality, that you would see in stuff, and it'd be really user-friendly, easy to use. You get the board, you turn it on. If you can mess with a few settings in the remote, but it's essentially always going to turn on and go for you.
I'm going to change something you said there, because I'm not going to accept it. Saying the fact that your board is not a boutique board. The boutique element is what you created, or surely what is defined as a boutique board? Like, this point.
That is the question.
Like accessibility. Boutique lifestyle. You've got. Let's tick them off. You've got powerful ESC. You've got gear drive as standard. You've got sufficient power range. You've got the most unique light system ever created on a board, for sure. So why wouldn't it sit in that demographic? But one thing as well, with you say, I'm gonna put you in a boutique thing anyway. I don't care if you disagree or not. But with your board, you haven't got the most enormous battery, and this isn't a negative thing as well. With the battery as well, let me just remind myself, you've got the battery configuration 14S 6P. It's not a gigantic monster tank battery we've seen in other boards as well. I think that's a really healthy place to be, because when you go to like higher voltage and then enormous battery, people forget about the weight of the thing and living with the thing. So what was the choice of having that 14S 6P battery for the board?
Yeah, so one of the things that we really considered there was, I think, you're seeing this happen in a few boards now. The Samsung 50S cell is something that made this possible. We are still sitting at 1500 watt hours with this cell, and it used to be that you would have to either have a cell that had a lot of discharge, a lot of punch, so that it wouldn't sag. Generally, the choice there was going to be a Molicel P42A, or you had a range battery, something like a Samsung 50E, 50G, a couple of others, but those had the gnarliest sag. I mean, some of those boards you'd get at 50%, and they would be dogging. And with these new cells between the Samsung 50S or the Molicel P45B, you have to choose. And so we were able to get 1500 watt hours out of a 14S 6P. You get the benefits of some efficiency of high voltage, plus that all steel gear drive that has that lower rolling resistance. And it just, as you said, we didn't need to go, to something even more gigantic. As it stands, this is a relatively heavy board. But, I gave you the range numbers, and I think for 95% of riders out there, that's going to be plenty. And I think we're in a really good spot.
But I think with the balance of the higher amp charger as well, it really pushes it back up. So it's the Swiss Army knife a bit more. So I think this is, for me, longer range, but you can use it for more other stuff as well. For example, a bit of a joke me and my partner have is she knows what board I'm taking by the noises I make as I carry out the apartment. So I think with the battery size and everything like that, it makes it a bit more livable, I think, than most boards for sure. So my next question is, obviously been established for a while with ESETCon, they're out in the public, people have used them. Have you found people how they've used them since they've been out in the market? So have you seen the customers using the boards in different ways?
Yeah, definitely. There's really a range of the way that I see people riding these. It's kind of like run from when we first started, and now we've got like a second wave of customers while we have this second batch of boards out. There are folks out there that are putting bindings on it that want to go kind of really nuts off-road. They'll do wheelies while strapped into this board because that's the type of torque that it has. Have other folks that are using it as a commuter. I've commuted for work on mine, you know, and they're just kind of cruising around the city doing their thing. And then it's funny, this TTL baller who just commented in the chat. So this guy has these videos of him riding in the Lake Tahoe area, and he went up a 1,200 foot like mountain road riding his major the whole way, and he was like, oh, I don't know if I should keep going, like I'm starting to finally get low on range. But then he was like, nah, I'm just gonna send it, we're going downhill the whole way on the way down, and he made it home. And it was just it was like, it's amazing the way that, you know, people use your product. And then it's cool because like they use it in ways that you may not have expected, and you learn from that. So in the V1, we learned certain things that people wanted out of it or were using it in different ways, and we wanted to apply that to this version of the major.
I think it's really interesting, but as I was saying about the battery size and the choices they've made along the way, through those choices, it's allowed those rides to be more achievable. Like through like a LaCroix Super Sport or Calyx or a massive tanky board, I ain't going to take that thing off road. It's going to be a nightmare for sure. But obviously that unlocks that opportunity with the bindings and cruise on all terrains. I just want to say as well, the unboxing, I've noticed this from Scott's unboxing when he fell over, which I thought was hysterical. Brilliant element. How, like, the unboxing experience and packaging, like, it's really it seems like everything's been thought about along the way.
We actually feel pretty proud of that, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not gonna name names, but go look at some unboxing experiences for some boards that cost $3,000, $4,000, $5,000.
Oh my god, yeah.
And it's like, gosh, guys, like I feel better about opening my cell phone. We wanted to give you that like iPhone opening experience where it was just, you know, a premium experience. Like you don't open that box and go, geez, did I just spend, you know, $3,000 on this? We, you know, everything that you get in the box is kind of got its own slot in the foam, got its own wrapping. It comes with a full tool set that has.
It shows me it's not going to move and packaging as well. So you've got the confidence that you know the thing's going to arrive. And I know, like you say, you're not going to name names, but I know products along the way who've arrived damaged because they're not packaged well enough.
Yeah, and we felt that about everything. So you're going to see like the chargers in its own box. The lights have a foam cutout for each individual light in there. The remote has this really nice case that I use now as a tool case when I go out with it, because it kind of perfectly fits just a few things that I need with it. But yeah, I mean, we wanted to make something that felt really good when you open that box, and like you said,
look at that,
it protects it.
That is a nice unboxing experience. Look at that, it fits nicely. That is a really, really nice experience for sure. Look at that, it's a really nice packaging option. And I think the box as well, I think Scott mentions it as well, like everything is organized and clean, and like, for example, like living the stuff is really important. I think we don't mention it enough, where living the product is really important. So if you have everything organized and set, you can use the boxes again. I'll put my charger here, I'll put my tools here, I'll put my remote box wherever.
Yeah, and the great thing is the box can also serve as a coffee table.
For sure. Yeah, I think it's really,
see, like, the cutouts for all the lights there.
Yeah, you know that the thing you're buying is going to arrive solid as well. And another thing as well, and I'm going to highlight this just because I noticed that briefly. it's this plug and play, such a simple concept. That means that if for any reason, I think perishables shouldn't be deemed as a negative concept. Things are going to break, things are going to need to be replaced. So having that push fit, and once again, customer in mind, the user ability, if a light goes, if a motor goes, whatever it is, it's all push fit design. Is that right?
Yeah, if I understand it the way you're saying it, I mean, like that just plugs in almost like the way your charger port goes into the charge port. That kind of plugs into a specific thing in the enclosure. And yeah, if for some reason something was to happen to your light, we just send you another light and you plug it in.
Simple. I love that. That's really good. I like that. But like I said, I keep going back to the light system, but I think that is one of the most unique elements of the product. Knowing that on every ride, it is going to be reliable on every ride. It's a really interesting. And for every reason, a headlight goes, you've got another one. If those both go, your board lights up. You've got two lasers. You're always going to have that safety factor as well. And I think that thing is novelty is great with lights and all that stuff, but we don't realize that the safety factor is out every time. Whenever you go out for a ride, you're always going to be lit up, and people are going to see you. You're going to see it because you're going out and you're glowing, which is great. But the second factor as well, you're always going to have that safety factor as well, that you're always going to be glowing and be safe on the ride at all times. For sure. So, that's my next thing. So, obviously, they've been out public, going out. What is the kind of the next step for the company? I think you're mute, by the way. Are you mute, by chance?
Yeah, that's yes. My style. I want to take the sip of water.
Oh, no worries. But yeah, with the board, obviously, you've got people using them out in public. What kind of ranges are we getting out? I don't think we've mentioned the ranges of the board going forward. What kind of ranges should we expect? Top speed ranges? Let's dial it in a little bit with the specs and stuff like that. We haven't actually spoken about that too much.
Yeah, sure thing. So the top speed on the board is 40 miles an hour or 64 kilometers. You know, what you're really seeing with that is that torque, that gear, that 5.3 gear is just going to give you loads of torque, and it's going to top out at a certain point. There is also settings within the ESC, for instance, like when you go to the tank tires, you're going to bigger wheels and you would be able to achieve a higher speed, but the ESC does hold it at 40 miles an hour. With range, as I discussed, we advertise 25 to 50 as real legit range. And I have plenty of customers that are getting that. Me at my size, weighing in at like 250 pounds when I ride on those track wheels that you can kind of see in the background, I get at least 30 miles an hour. On a standard 200 by 50 millimeter wheel, I'm getting 40 miles on a charge. And then if you go all the way up to the tank, you're not really going to those for range. You're getting like 20, 25. That's for me. And I think that's what we're talking is minimums, because I'm out riding with DCE Skate. We're constantly pushing things. We do have hills here in DC. So, that's the minimum you can expect. And I have plenty of customers that are getting 50 miles and more out of their board.
And just notice as well, when you're talking about different wheel configuration as well. So as a customer, obviously you buy the board for however it ships with the track and road wheels as standard. Is that correct? Yeah, that's configuration you come with. So obviously benefits for the consumer, and the board is obviously what I'm thinking. So for example, you buy the track wheel wheels, you do some mild off-road, and you can go for the standard wheels. And if obviously you want to do like tanky stuff, you go for the 10-inch wheels as well. So if you have the complete, surely in that concept, so if you bought the kit or the wheels configuration, is it simply just you said before, there's a pop and swap system, so you can determine what ride you can go in by changing 4 nuts, and then you can have a completely different ride feeling from that configuration.
Between the two 8-inch tires, it is seriously pop and swap super quick. The thing about the tank tire is it needs a longer axle to be able to fit it without wheel bite. So it's a little bit more involved. Now you're like kind of going in there and changing out the axles on all 4 ends on that tank tire. But I do think, between those two 8, it's extremely quick. It's faster than I can change a belt drive wheel.
And I think you said in the chat before we got outside, it's the convenience of using that hot swap design, and I think that's really the strength. So I think from our conversation today, I think the convenience of changing and maintenance of the board is the underlying, like, almost goal that's been from the board, where it's making it as simple as possible with the consumer. Because let's talk about it, there's a lot of boards that have discontinued this year, which is very sad. Actually, it's accessibility for the consumer, where you can pop, swap, change, and it's not like you're left hanging with the board. So I think it's really good to have a high-end boutique board. I'm going to say it's boutique because that's how it sits for me. Board where it's convenience in the frame of mind, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, even the motors, the connectors are outside of the enclosure. That's a huge thing. There's a lot of boards that to change out a motor, you've got to open the enclosure completely. We've made it so that the only time you would ever have to go into the enclosure is to go to the ESC, the BMS, or the battery, nothing else. You know, and our goal is that you never have to go into the enclosure. That's the real goal.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to have that accessibility for the consumer in mind. I just want to throw in there, guys, if you've got any questions more about the product, please throw them in, because it's your one opportunity at the moment to ask those direct questions. I think it's really, really important. But that's one thing I'll say as well. We've got a sale on at the moment, and that is a lot of board for the price it is at the moment. Like, how have we hit? Obviously, that's obviously just a day. Let me go to the complete. Like, that is £2,600 in the UK is a lot of board for what you're getting. Like, that is a really good deal right now. How have we achieved that for a startup as well, for sure?
Yeah, sure thing. And so you'll know, when we launched in March, we were priced at $39.99, which was still a lot compared to what was some of the things that were out there and what we were bringing standard. But we kind of got that feedback that's like, we want it to be even more competitive. So, being able to, some of the redesigns between the version 1 and 2 were ways that we thought about where we could save on some cost and some weight. We certainly made a considerably larger batch of boards in that second batch, so that we could achieve that. And so those were really things that we could think through so that we could be in a competitive place. I think it's really important too, when you're a new face, to make sure that you've got something extremely competitive out there. Get it into folks' hands, let them see what they think, to see that you're making a great product, and then you can start earning higher price points if that's what you need to do.
I suppose going in the top end is obviously the better way, because then all we can do now is make it more into a more consumer friendly environment, go out in high standards, hit that premium standards, and then we can use those the infrastructure on other products going forward. Obviously, we spoke about it briefly on the interview. So my question is, what is the main difference between the first gen boards to this generation? What is the big differences that have been applied with this board going forward?
Sure. So a couple of things that we changed between version 1 and 2. Really noticeably, the deck and enclosure. We started out with a convex deck and enclosure, that is typical in certain mountain boards, and that was to give you some clearance, before we had the tank tires. And there was enough out there that made us think that was popular, but really, I'll be honest, it worked best riding with bindings, and we learned a lot of customers weren't interested in riding with bindings. So we switched now to this W concave, Euro convex deck. It's got these footwells that really lock you in. And it still has a little bit of flex and pop. It's just a really, nice deck. And then it's just complemented with an enclosure that fits that shape of deck now. That was a big change. We also those track tires were an option, those track wheels, and we learned people liked them so much that we made it standard as the wheel for the board. We changed the gear drive a little bit, and that was a place that we could both save in weight and cost. We used to use this bearing that, I'm not even joking, it was like it was like this size in my hand, and it was like this thick, and the bearing alone weighed close to a pound, and that was in both sides, and it was a very expensive bearing that we were using. So we changed the design a little bit to not require that, while still being able to take the axial forces of the helical gear drive system. Made the gear drive look a little bit nicer, I would say, with some more gold accents. And then we had the 7280 motor, which is a gigantic motor, and we now have a 7185 motor, which is still a gigantic motor, but it's just what fit this gear drive system a little bit better.
Oh, yeah. I just say the shape of the deck is really, really pretty, and I didn't notice it until you really highlighted it, how much it seems to hug your feet. And so one thing I have a pet peeve on big boutique boards is you have all this space and it's every millimeter is covered up with battery enclosure, but having that small lip, what that tells me, you can tuck, you can grab the deck, you can ride the board in another way as well. And I think that's really great to have that kind of lip, so people who do want to go down, they want to tuck, they can grab the deck and actually lock themselves in for those tighter turns, if that's their style, for sure. So I've got a question here as well, about the angles of their watch influence of boards. How comes that's the angle for the deck and enclosure for the board?
Sure thing. So the angles of our deck are 25 degrees on each end. And that is a change. Like, not only did we change the full shape of the deck, but we did change the angle a little bit between the first version as well. The first version of the board had 35-degree angles. And what we had there was a really nimble, large board. Easily making a U-turn in a 2-lane road, for instance. But what we heard from folks is once they were getting to that really top end of the speed, like past 35 miles an hour, they just weren't feeling particularly stable on the board. And so that was a reason. That was another thing in the deck that we changed, lowered those angles a little bit, flattened it out, so that folks could feel stable. But I do think that in making it flat and making those deep concaves, you're able to now put more into your turns in a way that makes up for losing a little bit of tuck angle.
I think stability, but I suppose that's the evolution of getting in the customer's hands, them trying the boards and seeing how people use it. I think that's really interesting. I think the size, it's not a gigantic monster board as well, so is that another part of how people use it? They don't have this enormous tanky board, so they can use it for off-road, they can use it for urban environments. Is that part of the goals going forward?
I suppose so. There's probably a lot of people that would call it a pretty large board still. Certainly larger than like your average 2-in-1 board.
Yeah.
It's got 19-inch trucks as well. So in some ways, to answer Electric DNA's questions, like were we influenced by other boards? We're folks who've been riding a long time. Not only some of the DIY decks, I think, were things that we were influenced by, but it's you and I were talking about this a little bit earlier. Like it's really a shame, I think, what's happened with Cali NYC and McQuad, because we thought those were excellent companies. It would be hard, I think, to talk about the large urban cruiser format of boards without naming those companies. They're fantastic in their own way. And we, kind of put something that I think we thought would fit in that sort of competitive band. It's hard to believe that those are no longer with us, but we wanted to do our own thing in a lot of ways too. Still that idea of taking like Trampa's mountain board technologies that they had built, or companies like MBS, and putting it into an urban cruiser. And then, now what we have here with these like low profile tires, the lights and lasers. I suppose that was our spin on making that type of electric skateboard.
And to be honest, as you were saying about obviously the different demographics with obviously Lacroix and Canyon NYC, I don't think for a second, even if they were still trading at this point, I don't think anything there is clash of what they were doing, what you're doing. It seems to be sitting in its own demographic, and I think it's really exciting when I see companies like you and so like Boards as well, with the endurance stuff. They're kind of developing their own kind of niche in the market, where it's not like beginner, it's not like middle, it's not boutique. It's somewhere between middle and boutique, where it's like not an absolute tank monster board, but also hitting those demographics where people want a bit more. Because I feel like it's really important that someone who has mainstream 2-in-1 board and they want more at the time, it's either something enormous, tanky monster, or nothing. So this kind of hits that demographic that no one else is sitting in a new thing. And yeah, I think that's a really good point. If actually, no, it is a very unique board because it's not sitting in the expected demographic. It is a definitely unique board, and I think the way it's styled and the standards that you've talked about with the gear drive, the lights, the standards of what has been the mission from day one, it makes it sit in its own demographic for sure. So I'm really glad that something new, fresh and exciting, and that's why I was so excited having you on the live stream and seeing you guys at the eSkateCon and hitting a new demographic that is, evolving the e-skate scene. So it's really exciting for me. So, for sure, I'm really glad that a new bespoke product is coming out for sure.
Yeah, we were excited to kind of be able to bring this and slot it in, and because I've had relationships in different ways with some of these other companies. It's like, it's an honor to be compared to them, absolutely. But we are trying to make our own thing. And I think anyone who sees the board, who rides it, will understand that it's different in certain ways, and in ways that we really envisioned that we thought would make a really awesome board.
And I think, yes, you made something definitely very, very special. And like I said, we talked about on the live while I've been talking, it's something that has a versatility with the battery configuration, the gear drive, the size, the weight, and all that stuff. It unlocks that whole scope of ways of different riding. Right, so I'm just going to throw it in there, guys. We've only got a couple minutes left of the live stream, so please put your questions in. This is your last opportunity to put those questions in and get in a live response from Chris, talk about the product and new board. While those questions are coming in, I just want to ask you, Chris, is there anything you want to highlight or talk about in the last few minutes of the live stream while everyone is putting those questions in?
I guess it's really, look, we've been around since March, and I think we're building an exciting new product. I hope you'll take a look at it, give us a shot. We do got an exciting Black Friday deal going on, and if you ever make it to DC, happy to take you for the test ride of your life.
And the
I'm
places as well,
person.
so it's gonna be something special as well.
I know the spots, but I'm a community person. I'm just stoked to be able to see folks out there. See you at eSkateCon. You can find me in New York City sometimes, and fingers crossed, I need to get myself out to California again this year because I had such a good time riding in LA a couple of years ago. And shout out to the San Diego eSkate crew. I'm dying to come ride with you guys.
Yeah, to be fair, between all the places I want to ride in the world, ST Skate and DC, if I could, my wish list, either one, happy days. So I think you've got a really good heritage. But then, talking about obviously DC Skate, the heritage of this board is really, really exciting. So it's really cool to see how the evolution of this board has hit through urban environment, hitting mad off-road, and then it's created something truly, truly special. And like I said, I'm thankful I've had something fresh and exciting in the scene that is something unique for sure. So I'm really happy to have you on the live stream today. Right, okay, guys. So I don't think I've got any more questions here. So I think I'm going to wrap it up here. But Chris, it's an absolute pleasure having you on the live stream. Please stay and hang around the end, have a little chat and unwind after stream. But it's absolutely a pleasure having the product on the channel. Obviously, eSkateCon, if you want to know more as well, obviously reach out to DC if you're in the local area to give it a test ride. Obviously got great reviews from Scott and Craig and Drew as well, to check out the board as well. But yeah, I'm going to just throw in there DNA, DC and SD, biggest e-skate communities in the world. I'm going to put in the USA, in the world for sure. My friend Scott's got one sneaky question before I was going to wrap up. Can you comment? No comment. The launch has said from press reset? question, and you can say no comment. When you launched, there was a pitch shared from Press Reset. Any idea what that is?
I do. Scott, you've got a keen eye. You've got a really keen eye. But yeah, we talked a little bit to him, and he was really excited about the product. He's been doing his own thing for quite a while, though. He hasn't been super active, and we'd love to work with him. Could have been maybe an opportunity to do something together again, or to do something together that makes him active. But we'll see. Time will tell.
Okay, I think it's a private one, so I'll let him crack on with that in the background. Right, so I just want to sign off here. Chris, absolute pleasure having you on here. Something really refreshing for the channel and the live. The engagement's been
good
great.
to be here.
James, bro, late to the party. What are you doing? Oh, honestly, mate. And you have to watch this on record, but looking forward to seeing you SkateCon next year. I'm looking forward to seeing you, Chris, at SkateCon next year. I'm definitely gonna
can't wait to ride together next year.
Yeah, for sure, man. Oh, man, it's standard every year. Can't wait. But anyway, I was going to sign off here. Thank you, everyone who's taken part. Engagement's been great. Views have been great. And it's an absolute pleasure having you on here as well, Chris. So I'm going to wrap up here. Okay, pal?
Sounds good. Cheers. Thanks so much for having me here, Thomas.
No worries. Thank everyone for joining. Thank you so much. Right, wrap it up now.